Hello, 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 guys. Welcome to this new edition of Mind Podcast. This is Adit Kapadia. As we promised, we are back with part two of the discussion we started in the last episode with our UPSC. I always say from aspirants to graduates, and now I would say probably a step closer than where we were 2 weeks ago to being serving officers. Um, Mind Podcast has completed 300 episodes, so this is the 300th episode. So I wanted to do a special two-part series where we focus just on this and not like just talk about our daily, weekly news and bore you guys with it. There is a news podcast coming up in the next couple of days that I'm going to record. So stay tuned for that. But this one is going to be a continuation from where we left off, and I have four fantastic panelists, graduates, aspirants, and would-be officers with me. So with me is Rajat Ubaikar, Karthik Shrotriya, Vasu Jain, and Saloni Verma. Welcome to Mind Podcast, guys.
Thank you for
Thank
having us.
you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I'll go one by one and give you guys like introduce you guys and just give you guys to make some sort of an introductory comment then about your journey. What has it been to UPSC? Now you can say that it's finally reached its culmination stage, as you guys are probably there, right? You guys are not waiting ki ab kya hoga, right? So I'll start with you, Karthik, first. We were just talking before offline. I mean, you've been on the commerce side in Delhi College and in Ramjas College and stuff. So from there to administration, right? Has it been like did the thoughts seeded itself when you were in your brains when you were in Delhi University, or did your brains work overtime beyond Delhi University and you're like, कि मुझे अब ये करना है?
So in my case, that was a pretty clear cut. I'm let's say the cookie cutter example of how bureaucrat kids turn out. That they usually see their parents working in bureaucracy. They think that's a good idea, and then they try and follow into their footsteps. So that is what happened with me. My father was in the police department in Madhya Pradesh. So I thought my father seems like a very hardworking yet very happy guy. This must be something that would give my life pleasure as well. So I thought, why not try it? And thankfully, it worked out as well.
Lovely. So you are the only one I've talked to and stuff who's given me a cookie cutter sort of example, which is fascinating because you would almost like this example would probably be like 20-25 years ago. It would probably be seen in the top four cities of India: Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta, Chennai, and stuff like, right? You said you are from Bhopal, and now you're seeing that in Bhopal, I'll give example. I was talking to one guy who's based in Vadodara, Gujarat, right? So you are seeing that beyond the top four sort of metros now, people are taking up more and more. People are taking up UPSC, and not only are they taking up UPSC, there you went to Delhi to study and stuff like that. So you're having almost that Western sort of experience where you're not going to the college inside your hometown.
Absolutely. And I think there are like two things to be said about that. One is the provincialization of the bureaucracy, as it is called.
Yeah.
More and more people are coming up from tier 3 and tier 4 cities,
Right.
places that nobody has ever heard about. There used to be at some point of time a monopoly of St. Stephen's College in producing IAS and IFS officers. That clearly does not seem to be the case anymore.
Yeah.
And so similarly, my educational background took me to Delhi, and that was just a slight help into the ideas that I already had. So of course, definitely a generational shift at this point.
Fascinating. Viewers of Mind podcast would know my good friend Sunanda always is a St. Stephen's alumni as well. So she would always do a big whoop when someone said St. Stephen's. So I had to do a throwback to her. Rajat, coming to you next, and I'm then coming to Saloni. Like, what has the journey been for you? You're a fellow engineer, and from engineering to bureaucracy. It's not a traditional route, but as I learned on the last episode, a lot more engineers are going into administration.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the proportion of engineers is quite high, even in our batch. So I won't say mine is an unusual case in any way. But yeah, I mean, as far as my personal motivations go, I was not particularly interested in appearing for the UPSC when I was in college, for instance. It was only later that I made up my mind that diplomacy is something that offers me the kind of work satisfaction and the kind of exposure that very few other jobs can. And that led me to prepare for UPSC after a series of other jobs in various fields. And yeah, so that's what led me here in the first place.
Fascinating, fascinating. What about you, Saloni? You've come from a literature background, as we were discussing. So I'm always curious because this is one exam where you actually think about it while you are in the academic thing. Unlike most other entrance exams in India, where we have to think in the 11th and 12th standard about what we want to do. Like I have given the IIT exam unsuccessfully and AIEEE exam successfully, so I am familiar with what it means to be. And I can tell you, the only thing I wanted to know was I wanted to be an engineer, which I still am. But many people did not have that option or thing. So from the literature background to bureaucracy, how is that journey?
Um, I'm glad you spoke about school because that's where the so-called journey, very grand word, but that's where it begins in the sense that I was also a science student till 12th grade. The path was cut. I had biology, so becoming a doctor was what was, well, let's say, in some ways a set path, so to say, which is what most Indian kids do with biology in 12th grade. But I was very certain that I really want a career in which whatever I do is very, it's impacted by what's happening around me every day in a very social or a contemporary sense. But I wasn't sure of the bureaucracy back then. I knew maybe law or journalism, civil services. These three, four options were hovering in my mind, which is why I shifted to literature because I think other than the fact that there were logistical issues, obviously, in choosing, let's say, a subject like political science, which I wanted to a little more, I think literature really brings together the best of almost all disciplines. It's really like a melting pot in many ways. And I thought perhaps that would help me understand a little more as to where exactly I want to channelize my energy into. And by the time it was third year, I took the plunge and, well, here I am. But yeah, that's exactly how it began. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely fascinating. So, Vasu, coming to you, from law to bureaucracy is a course that many somehow from studying the laws to writing the laws, right? That's the cliched joke that a lot of people make, or to assist in writing the laws. I don't want to second guess here. Is that a clear journey for you? Because I have spoken to Nizla many times about this, and she said that she claims that it would be the same if she was in any other profession as well. It's not like law impacted that or something, but maybe you tend to read more about the finer sort of details.
So I would say Lord certainly had an impact on this. Uh, my primary purpose to take law was to develop the leadership skills, because if I when I was in 11th and 12th, I saw the leaders around in the world, in India. Most of them had one thing in common, and that was law. So that leadership skill was one of the prime motive, and the same thing is there in a civil servant. So I would say that law had a great impact on that. Secondly, while we were reading laws, while we were reading law syllabus in law school, there were certain instances wherein we felt that we can be a part of it. We can be a drafter. We can have put in our ideas in this way or that way, or we could have done it in that manner. And those deliberations with the batchmates, with the faculty members, that really pushed us to some policy into some policy thinking. So these were some of the factors which pushed me into law, which are specifically with respect to law. Otherwise, there were other reasons also, like the family aspirations, my personal goals. So those were there, but I would certainly say that law had a great impact in my journey.
Like absolutely what you said, family aspirations, and I'm sure this journey is not all just your own alone. The cliche goes, it takes a village to raise a child. It probably takes an entire family to send a kid to where you guys are all there, right? It's probably a bunch of sacrifices. So if I were to ask you, right, what has been the most challenging part of your journey? I know the academics and everything has been challenging, no doubt about that. I mean, personally, to you, what was the toughest part so far, and what was the most amusing part? And any of you guys can first take the question. Karthik, Rajat, anyone, and then Vasu, Saloni, and anyone.
Yeah.
So
So for
if I
me, I
could,
think yeah,
Okay,
go on, Karthik.
I should not have said anyone. Karthik, you go first because I knew this would
okay,
happen.
so my mine was a fear of the known. I for the longest period of time I had known that this was what I wanted to do for my life. And once the opportunity had presented itself, once I could really attempt this examination, the sheer enormity of what all I was supposed to do and how I was supposed to prepare, how it was supposed to look like for an aspirant to become an officer, that became all too real for me. So that was the first struggle, to have a reality check of sorts even before one has jumped into the preparation. Then,
Correct.
of course, there are constant doubts about whether it's even humane to have an attention span of about 8 hours every single day, to be able to study for that long, to be not social around people for that long, to not talk to anybody, because that is something that is a competitive advantage at this point of time. So those are some of the initial struggles that usually people go through.
Fascinating, fascinating. What about you, Rajat?
Yeah, for me, I think it was just maintaining that emotional resilience, where you try to stick to your goals day to day, and you do not think about the future too much. It is difficult to do in reality. It's easier to say, like, even now I tell most people, like, only way to like really clear this exam is to only live in the present, not to dwell on the past or to dream about the future, or even worry about the future, because all anxiety that comes usually from the past or the future. It's in the present. It's in being mindful of the moment you have at hand.
Fair.
So that's easier said than done, and I think that was the biggest challenge of implementing it in your day-to-day life.
I can completely imagine, and then especially when someone comes to you and gives you advice, पहले तो the first reaction is दो चमाट मार दूंगा इसको. Does he or she know what I'm going through before giving me advice, right? So it's that frustration. But if I ask you, Saloni, what was in your journey, right? What was probably the most humorous thing that you faced apart from the challenges, right? Because and like when I talk to people, it'll be like suddenly for many people, like post UPSC, they the same people talk to them very differently, and then pre UPSC it's like they want to give them advice every 4 minutes they talk to them.
Um, well, forgive me if my conception of humor is not as humorous, because I think the exam does that to you after a while. But for me, what was funny on a very personal level was how I did things which, I would always laugh at. So a lot of people around me in college would say, time is money and you cannot afford to waste time in life. And life is a race. And I would always laugh at them and be like, no, life is meant to be enjoyed. And I would have a little bit of a hedonistic attitude towards it. And I remember sometimes deep into preparation, I would look at myself and laugh and look at you, what has happened to you. And in a very dark way, that would be humorous to me. Just
Yeah.
doing things which I never thought I would, like Karthik very rightly said, cutting yourself off socially. And I chose to find humor in that because that's what got me going. I apologize if this does not fit the
No,
standards
no.
of humor, perhaps, that one would perhaps conventionally associate. But yeah, just seeing myself in how much I changed, that was funny in a very twisted way for me, if I could put it like that.
There is only one thing that's consistent about humor that I mentioned in the previous podcast also, that it's tragedy times the factor of time. So all of us are some sort of going through some tragedy. 5 years from now, we're going to laugh at it very, and think कि क्या क्या सोच रहे थे हम लोग, like life could end today and God knows what. And you guys probably face that at a more regular basis while you're going through the preparation procedure. Ki, oh my God, am I, So Vasu, does that happen? Like when you're talking to your peers, when you're talking especially for preparations, you're like, yaar, ye to maine kiya hi nahi. I mean, I did not know. What am I going to do now?
So this is a very very frequent phenomenon which happens to most of us. When we talk to, so if we are talking to the people who are preparing for civil services,
Yeah.
then generally it's like, oh, you have read this, you have read that, you have completed that. मैंने नहीं करा है. I will do that. So that thing, I have missed that. That thing is there. And when we are talking outside the UPSC circle, it's like they are doing something, they are earning something, they are party, and then we are still like, अच्छा नहीं, but we will be completing Lakshmikant today. You go to the track, we would be completing this book. So those things are there, but it's upon you how you balance and how you maintain things. It's not that you can have best of both the worlds.
Of course.
At that time, uh, you make a plan, you make a schedule, and then according to your schedule you work. You do not just go by your FOMO attitude, by FOMO emotions, and leave aside your schedule.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Now I'm coming to a very important yet interesting point of that you guys all face. And this is one question that I wanted to sort of ask in both the podcasts I did was the interview, because that is really, that's only 20% of your main exams, but that somehow is what separates many times, right? So what is interesting for me is the interview, the process itself mentally, it cannot have been easy going to, I mean, it's intimidating, right? It's your career, your years of preparation and everything is on the line. So did you go into the interview with a very confident attitude and somehow came back more like, oh my god, I shouldn't have been this? Or did you go with a very sort of key, I'll slowly softly ease myself in, and found yourself like asserting yourself and almost questioning the examiners?
I could take that actually, if that's okay with
Please.
everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the trap with the interview is that it is perhaps the most individual stage, so to say. Whoever you are is right there in front, and you cannot. I mean, of course, you can still fake it in life, at least to some degree, but I think this is the stage where you can least fake it. You're feeling like you've said something really silly and it's going to flash across your eyes. So just the vulnerability, that the interview subjects you to had me really nervous. So going in, I was certain that, okay, you know what, I'm going to do well, I have practice, etc. But I thought, oh God, what if like they can see the flicker of fear in my eye? And I was so conscious about each and everything I was doing. So that was the attitude. It's almost like someone is scrutinizing each and everything of you. Very dehumanizing in some ways, but I suppose it's the process one puts themselves through. And yeah, I mean, that was the mindset. Thankfully, it went much better than anticipated. And one thing I have learned about interviews since then is that just expect nothing. I think it doesn't ever go the way you think it will. I mean, that's what I have learned. So it was quite a fun and fascinating process that way. Yeah.
You're the only one to tell it me it's fun process. Many other persons just say we were horrified and terrified with the prospect, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I thought it would be horrifying. Maybe that's why it was fun. Perhaps
But-
reverse works that way for that.
Yeah. Any one of you guys, Vasu, Rajat, Karthik, anyone, whoever wants to take it next. What about your interviews?
So Adit, I don't think interview can be horrifying. I think it's just a conversation you're having with them. So
No,
I just went with the mindset that
huh,
we are having this conversation a bit little more formal, little more serious and more academic conversation
yeah,
with more intellectual in a way, like more accomplished people,
yeah.
like they're highly qualified people. So that conversation we would be having them on basically academic topics. So that is the attitude, and that was the thing which was told to me, that go with that mindset, just having a conversation with them. And generally, I think we generally enjoy the conversation. Sometimes we are nervous, we are anxious because a lot is at stake. But I think when we're preparing for this, when we have written pre and main, when we have written mains, we tend to enjoy the last process. Most of the things have been done. Now it's just the last leg, and let's do it. We are going to meet the UPSC people for the first time in this journey. So
No,
let's
the
enjoy
reason
that
I use the word
stage too.
horrifying is not for the interview itself. It's just the anticipation of what might happen. When once you're there, then things ease in very easily. So, Rajat and Karthik, is your experience the same, or did you have that mindset कि मैं तो मतलब I'll go in with a sort of an aggressive thing and almost sort of counter question them if they are questioning you too hard? Because that is also an approach one can take, right? That when you are sort of pushed with many questions, you come out all guns firing.
Uh, I have had two interview experiences at this point of time. First one was absolutely deadly terrifying. At that point of time, all the anticipation, everything that one could think of, that it would go wrong, this is all going wrong, no matter how much preparation one has done, that would happen. And my mind was so tensed that it relaxed itself, irrespective of anything that was happening. It simply gave up.
Yeah.
And that led to possibly the best interview experience that one could have had, because I was finally not worried about anything and my personality was really out in the open. The second time around, I had realized that by mistake, I had struck the nerve of the process. to do the best that you can and to try and worry as little as possible about it. It's very, very easier said than done. But once you get hold of the fact that there is nothing to be nervous about, those are people that they are willing to engage with you. They are the one who are supposed to select the working mechanism of the government of India. They are the ones with the responsibility. You're the one with just a little bit of hard work and performance. It becomes a bit easier. And I think that is how both of those went.
Fascinating, fascinating. Rajat, similar experience, or did you feel like you could, or did you come out? Or any of you guys, did you come out first, Rajat, and then anyone after him? Like, did you come out saying that regretting that? "Arey, ek do, sawal we could have answered a little differently. We could have, do you do double back a lot and think a lot?"
So for me personally, like the process of interview process was the most fun experience of the entire process, because you don't have to write for long. The mains exam is so grueling. Your hands start hurting, your fingers are swollen. It's a terrible process overall. But interview, there is nothing much to do apart from just just work on all the hobbies that you mentioned in the DAF. So I had fun doing that. I read all the books I wanted to read forever. I worked on whatever myself, and all you have to do is you have to be yourself. You have to be as natural as possible. At the same time, you have to be respectful. So I don't think a counter questioning sort of strategy is wise in the case of UPSC, because they are often very, very senior bureaucrats and officials who know way more than we can even imagine. So I went with the attitude that I should be humble, I should be respectful, and I should be myself. And that's what worked for me, I think, this time. And I did not have any regrets later either, when I had to when I thought whether I should have answered some question differently and so on. But I mean, for me, the entire interview experience is encapsulated in that moment when you exit the interview hall, and when you are that's the moment when you realize whether you've done well or not. For me, I was beaming from the end. I was smiling so hard when I exited, and I knew I had done decently. So for me, like, the interview is, again, it's the most fun part of the entire process.
Nice. Very nice. Uh, here is the funny thing though, right? Like when we talk about interviews and things like that, that you people somehow people forget that it's not just the interview itself, right? It is essentially just a job interview. Right now, it is tied to an exam, so it's a higher stakes job interview. But if you say you are interviewing for a position that you're going to get in 2 or 3 months from now, so and if you're going for a job interview, how many people are going to go and fight with their employer saying, "Let me tell you what you are doing wrong"? I'll tell you what. So it's similar, like confrontational attitude doesn't work in job interviews as well. What I find fascinating, and what Rajat said, is actually a very engineering response, that his hand was hurting writing the paper. I've only heard engineers tell me that about UPSC papers. Lawyers, English literature folks, they're used to writing long papers in their exams. We engineers are only used to doing calculations and things. So it's that also is that is also is an attitudinal change that people have to make from their profession. That now we have to go from sort of writing different kind of examinations to a learning a little bit about history, things like that. So for Vasu, you and Saloni, I mean, either of you can take this question first, and then I'll come to Rajat and Karthik. Did your perspectives change about certain issues regarding India, regarding certain subjects, while you were studying from it, while you were studying during it?
I
So,
go
yes,
for it.
Saloni, please go.
Okay. I think the first thing which I learned very prominently is that I genuinely know nothing. I think just studying about these subjects, sure, one has some idea or the other about what is happening in the country and what isn't. But I think the fact that the exam and studying for it made me understand so many more issues in greater depth was the first most important part. But see differently, I think every time I would be studying, I would just inadvertently be drawn to the fact that perhaps a few years from now, if I'm lucky enough, I will be in a position where I have to take crucial decisions, decisions which affect this issue, decisions which affect so many people involved. And that's when I progressed from being, let's say, just a spectator who is either critiquing or appreciating whatever is being done from an academic perspective, from an ethical perspective, to looking at issues and understanding and appreciating their complexity, and realizing that perhaps when you have to take those decisions, what are the dilemmas that come into play, and it's really not easy. So I think for me, each and every issue, I can, be it poverty, be it human trafficking, anything at all, I realize nothing is black and white. That was my biggest takeaway, that all of these things operate in big gray zones, and it's really not going to be
And,
easy,
and,
but
and especially when we are all in college, we love to think of every issue as black
absolutely.
and white, and how we are always right and everyone else
And
is
we
always
think we're
wrong.
going to change the world. So that attitude really came like down, gladly so. So that was my biggest takeaway.
I always joke that if someone were to replay the positions I had 5 years ago or 6 years ago, then I would call myself a fraud for what I believed in. So, and that positions only change the more you the more you read, the more you study, and the more people you talk to. So, yes.
Pardon me. I'm so sorry. Okay,
No,
I
no, no,
tried.
no. Absolutely. I
I tried
completely
to
understand. Completely understand. We'll start with Vasu. Vasu. Yeah.
So I agree with whatever Saloni said. Firstly, that we know nothing, and secondly, that when we are criticizing. So earlier, when we used to criticize, we used to criticize for the sake of criticism.
Hmm.
Now, when we are criticizing, we are not just criticizing. We want to see the other side also. What can be done for that criticism? If
Hmm.
something is wrong, what else could what is the other option available to that? In addition to that, a major change which I saw in myself was that earlier, when I was looking at any issue, I used to look at from legal perspective, majorly from legal perspective. May it be any social issue, economic issue, or any other issue. The dominant lens was the legal lens. But when I started preparing, when I started analyzing things in civil services, I realized that legal is just a part of the system, or legal is just one aspect of it. There could be multiple dimensions, multiple perspective to any situation, and that I would say really helped me to broaden my perspective and broaden my horizon. So this was one major change which I noticed in myself.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's a fascinating sort of perspective, right? Because you don't think you were capable of recognizing this broader perspective when you were in college and things like that, but suddenly in this journey you have done that, right? So what about you, Rajat? Do you echo some similar sentiments, or do you think that that this all this is somehow in our brains, like in within us while we are studying, maybe in school, but maybe it takes the college or the study to enhance those thoughts out?
Yeah, I mean, UPSC preparation has changed me in more ways than I can really count. It has, uh, when you say come out of an engineering background or so on, your perspective is so limited. Say, you don't know so much. It's just
Yeah.
your knowledge is very, very limited. And UPSC really showed me how much there is to learn in this world. Like, that knowledge is endless, and especially about India, the India's polity. I had never really studied the constitution or anything like that, and it really helped me gain an appreciation of India itself. The fact that it exists and continues to run, it's just mind-boggling, and it still continues to inspire awe in me.
Hmm.
So that is something that UPSC gave me. Apart from that, I also was a journalist for some time. So as a journalist, you are trained to look at things from a more critical lens. That's
Hmm.
because that's what makes good stories.
Right.
But in UPSC, like Saloni mentioned, you realize that there are pros, cons. There are so many constraints under which the real world operates beyond the whatever idealistic world views that we often come out of with from college. So that's something that also I really learned during
Yeah.
preparation. So yeah, those would be the primary changes, but it's changed me hugely. So I
No, no, you're absolutely right. Because for me, like I always say that to produce or to record one podcast episode, I have to listen to at least 4 or 5 other podcasts that have completely no relation to my podcast completely coming from opposite political, social, economic beliefs than what I may believe in, just to get the whole perspective. Because if I and even now, I don't say that my positions are set in anything, right? Like it's about a couple of years ago, I did a podcast over here with so in Houston, we used to do a Houston India conference with an Air Vice Marshal, right? And he was retired, of course, but he was a guest speaker. And when you do with an officer and when you do with a national security analyst, the journalist or the columnist in you has two completely different approach. And then you somehow sometimes see that sometimes serving officers do see things in much more sort of gray than an analyst would. The convention would assume that an analyst would view at things as in gray, and the officer would do black and white. So it's just an interesting perspective you gain the
Yeah.
more you talk to, and I think it's similar with UPSC as well, right?
Yeah, it's the difference between being an analyst and being a practitioner. So
Yeah.
UPSC trains you to be a practitioner, and when you're practicing something, you tend to have a more nuanced perspective of things, and the ground realities of things. So
Yeah,
I suppose
absolutely.
that's something UPSC really ingrains in.
Yeah, and then you would then move past it, because I can completely agree that engineering certainly is focuses a lot more on black and white. So I always say that you have to move a little bit beyond engineering to understand the grayness in matters.
Yes.
So Karthik, what about you? And then I'm coming to Vasu after.
So I would say one thing, that is, you really understand the granularity of a topic. When everybody thinks of a bigger picture, and
Yeah.
usually that picture isn't made up of many things. As you start pulling at each and every string, as you're supposed to study all those different subjects and every different dimension of every single topic, you really start understanding how important each and every single piece of a puzzle is. For example, if you just think about hunger as a topic, an idea of hunger affecting international relations isn't something that is usually thought of. But those are things that you take into perspective. Those are things that you inculcate into policy. And those are all the things that require time and effort. Which brings to the second point, which is research. Doing a well bit of research over everything, as you pointed out, Adit, that you would watch 4 podcasts completely unrelated, but that's still good research for your podcast, is something that is extremely similar to the process that one has to do to study for this examination. So both those things are linked to each other, and is something that I think is going to be useful for the rest of my life, to really be able to dig in and dig out every single stuff.
Absolutely. And one thing I'm going to warn you guys, like as we go to the last part of the podcast, the last 15 minutes, the last 2 minutes, I always ask for all my panelists to give book or show recommendations, because that goes beyond politics, current affairs, anything. And so I'm giving you guys a good time to think. The first panel will yell at me that I didn't give them more than 3 minutes to think, but I'm giving you guys the 13 or 15 more minutes, because it's become a sort of a tradition that we have at Mind Podcast, and I like that tradition. That just because you are talking about a book or something else, that doesn't mean that's the only book you should read. I think we should all broaden our perspectives and read a lot more on that. But Vasu, I want to come to you about another issue that we seldom focus on when we talk about UPSC. I'm happy to say that we have focused on it in the last 2 podcasts. Is about mental health, right? The mental fortitude that it takes. I applaud all of you guys to give the exam and to sustain, to keep studying for it, to come and especially during COVID times. I mean, you guys will be the first COVID batch, so to speak, where you guys had to give exams in masks. So not only were your hands and like aching and you guys were sweating, your mouth and nose were covered with a mask as well while you were writing the exam. So it's a challenge of its own, right? And then getting the motivation to go, and people forget what a candidate is going through when they pose in. So how do you address the challenge, right? Like right now we are only talking to the success stories, if I may use that term, but there are 400,000 other people who did not clear, or maybe like 100,000 others who've cleared the first exams and then not gotten a chance to go to the interview and so forth. And for them, like, this becomes even a tougher journey. because how do they justify like the last 2 years of their lives to study? So how do you sort of address that issue? Vasu, I was going to you first. You're on mute, I think. Vasu, you're on mute.
Ah,
There.
sorry. So sorry,
No,
sorry
no.
for this. I think that one very major issue is with respect to when we take pressure of the society, of the family, of these things. So everyone comes with the mindset that or with the aim that they would clear the exam in their first attempt with a very good, with a single digit rank. But that most of the time does not happen, and then we take pressure from the family, from the society, that what will they think about us. So even if that is not the case, we take that on ourselves, and we forget to think that in 99% of the cases, students, aspirants are not able to clear it. So it's okay if we are not able to, if we are not able to clear it. If it's okay if we are not getting selected in the first attempt. So we need to bring in that acceptance. First thing is that. Second, we need to work on, we need to see where we are lacking. So most of the time, if we introspect, uh, if we sit down and see our journey, see our preparation, we can find out the points which we need to work upon. So for me, like I knew in my first attempt, my practice was not that much. In my second attempt, I knew I didn't have that much of time for preparation. Hence, my syllabus was not completed. So I knew the points which I need to work upon. So if I work on those aspects, I think we can improve on that. So in that way, mental stress, or that factor needs to be tackled.
Adit, you're on mute now.
I'll just join.
I walked right into that one, right? Didn't I? I told Vasu I was on mute. But no, I think when we talk about issues about mental strength and stuff, right? Where do you did you guys have sort of a coping mechanism through it, right? If you heard someone talk nonsense to you, or sometimes, because we are not completely made of stone, it's impossible for us not to get affected by small things here and there, right? So how do you deal with that? Anyone, Karthik, Rajat, like how do you deal with that?
Okay.
And what coping mechanism that you guys have, right? And what would your advice to fellow a lot of people who are going through this?
So I would say that it really helps to have a thick skin and a Teflon back. Just let it slide off of you. It really is water under the bridge. People saying stuff to you, stuff about you to other people really doesn't matter. And that is both related to two things. One, if you really are successful, then those are the first sort of people that would keep coming back. And the second one is just, it's a generally good mental health practice to really minimize the amount of emotions or a reaction that your body might create to any sort of stimulus. That is being a bit stoic in life in general, as one usually can only control the way that one feels about things, not the things that are happening to them. And that is especially true in UPSC because the success rate is 0.01%.
Yeah.
Everybody is going to fail by statistics.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why take that personally? It's normal, it's all right, it happens.
No, but I think it
Would
also
cope.
comes from a very desi attitude we have towards failure, as we look at it as some sort of a stigma, like forgetting that people actually have to fail once just to know what they need to do to succeed. What is failure, right? Like in you need to know where you went wrong to go right. If you get it right, then you just are a god, or are a very lucky person in life. So that's the thing, right, Raju? Is your experience the same, that you just have to pretty much cut out the rest of the world?
Yeah, I mean, you should definitely. I definitely try to cut off any people who exuded negativity. You don't need that in your life. Like, why would you, why would you subject yourself to that? But at the same time, like the one thing that you really require is belief in yourself, conviction in yourself, and that is, I think, the biggest counter against mental health issues. Where it's self doubt and all these things that crop up during the process. So, I mean, I used to, whenever I used to feel low or anything, I would just drown myself in the work again. In the sense, I used to see what it is that I have to do today, and not think about, okay, what's going to happen, not worry about that. So
Yeah.
that was my coping mechanism. It was just to,
Yeah.
do
No,
that,
no.
just try and finish.
Agree, and maybe talk to the people who are going through the same experience as you. They'll have more to talk to. Like I guess talking to your peers is takes so much more importance now than it, especially during a pandemic. That's like because I mean, before the pandemic, you were at least physically talking to people. Post pandemic, everything was virtual, so that becomes tougher. But as we move to the closure, I think, and as you guys know, unfortunately, Saloni was in a public area, so she couldn't, she had to leave our course a sudden. But we really, really appreciate her making the time and making sure she came here. But as we move to the closure of the thing, what is the next for all of you, right? Because now, slowly, you are getting your assignments. After the training, you'll get this. So if I were to ask you guys in the 25 second nutshell sort of piece, what would be the next perspective for you? Like, what is the next part in the journey? Whoever wants to go first. It's a very
All right.
small one.
So
So the next
yeah.
Karthik, yes.
So if I begin in about 20 seconds, the task now is to finally make oneself into the officer one always thought one could be. We were diligent in our work ethic when we were studying. Now it is time to be diligent in the actual work that we were studying for. And that requires all sorts of tools and training that one can get their hands on. We have great institutions currently sitting in Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, starting our way onto that path. For me, that would move on to the National Police Academy to start and finally learn about the criminal justice system and all the laws that run our country like the way it does and how one can improve upon it. And that's essentially it.
Lovely, lovely. What about you, Vasu?
I would say to be like an officer, to become like an officer, and yet be grounded and understand the ground realities and the problems which the public are facing. To develop that aptitude, that attitude.
Fascinating. And that journey itself is going to be an interesting like one, because you guys don't know which physical part of India you're going to be in yet. And then of course you navigate through parts of India, so that it's going to be that as well, discovering a new state, discovering a new city, the new people, and so forth.
Absolutely.
What about you, Rajat?
Yeah, for me, it's since I'm in the Indian Foreign Service, I am really looking forward to, becoming a diplomat. I still don't see myself as one, but I hope to inculcate all the good traits of a diplomat. I'm also really excited about the language training since I'm fond of learning new languages. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing new places and in general, just, learning a lot about the world and India's place in it and how we can further India's interests abroad.
Maybe we'll see you here sooner than we see the rest of you, Rajat, in this part of the world, because we do talk to many foreign service officers here, and it's been quite fascinating, getting to know their perspective and sitting down and talking to them in a more relaxed sort of environment, about what it takes and so forth. So it's been great. But before we wrap up, guys, we have to do the tradition that we have about book recommendations or show recommendations, anything you've seen, watched, heard. So whoever wants to go first, books that you've drawn, like it didn't have to be current books, it can be books that you've drawn inspiration from, read, really enjoyed, can go back to anything, or shows, either way.
Yeah, so I'll go first.
So who goes first? Do I?
So,
No, Rajat
uh,
volunteered himself. So,
so my book recommendation would be this fascinating book called Murder at the Mushaira. So I'm a huge fan of murder mysteries and whodunits and so on. So it's a fascinating book set in 1857 Delhi, just before the revolt breaks out, in which Mirza Ghalib is the detective,
wow.
and he's the one who is solving the case. It's an amazingly well researched historical fiction come murder mystery. So that would be my one book recommendation. As
Who
far
is
as the
it by?
show, It's by this guy called Raza Mir. I think I might be missing the name, but it's called Murder at the Mushaira. And yeah, and my show recommendation would be this show called The Shield. It's called The Shield. It's a slightly old show from say 2005 or something, but it is hands down the best police drama, like cop drama that I've seen, like a
Yeah.
thriller. At the same time, it reveals so much about the policing system in the US. It's a wonderfully made show, and it's one of the shows that has been the highlight of the last 2 3 years or whatever I watched.
So
It
we
would
have
be
the
what we recommend.
we have the future diplomat recommending a police show. So do we have the future IPS recommending a show on diplomacy, Karthik, or a book on diplomacy?
So I think a bit close. It's going to go there because my book recommendation is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Yeah.
That was the first time that I actually read someone weave out an entire civilization into a book
Right.
and a life of a generation. And it was so beautifully written. It really moved me. The
Right.
show recommendation would be Succession. It's currently going on in HBO. Season 3 is on. I wouldn't want to give out any details. Just like start from episode 1, and I'm sure you'll be hooked. That's from me.
Absolutely. As you and I were sharing memes about it offline. Vasu, your recommendations.
So my book recommendation would be a self-help book by Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit. So I read it just before my interview, and I try to inculcate that in my routine, some habits and how to change some habits. So that's a very nice book. For shows, I have not watched much of shows, so I won't have any recommendation on that. But for book, I would recommend The Power of Habit.
Lovely. My since you mentioned murder mystery, Rajat, my recommendation would be sort of a murder mystery called The Silent Patient. It came out, I think, one and a
I've
half.
read it. Yeah,
It's a
I've read it.
fascinating book
Yeah.
with some. It's an old school murder mystery because you could easily make it as a play and not even have to go out and make it like as a full-fledged movie. I'm a huge theater not
It's a psychological thriller, more of a
psychological
psychological
thriller.
thriller
Right.
than a murder.
Yeah, and I'm very sad that the COVID killed sort of the theaters for 2 years because I love watching plays. Those would be my first recommendations. But since I can't, I'm going to give a show recommendation that I watched lately called one is an American show that we finished watching called it's a comedy show called The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel set in the 70s. It's a fascinating show, and the other is called Hacks. Both are about female comedians, and the third is an Indian show that I just watched. It's completely popcorn, completely over the top, but it's great fun to watch. Special Ops 1.5. Just watch, and it's like this bad Bollywood movie, thriller movie. I shouldn't say bad, but it's like this old school Bollywood thriller movie. I just watch it for KK Menon because I watch everything that he's in it because he's so good at whatever he does. But so those would be my recommendations. But any closing thoughts, guys? Thank you so much for your time. But any closing thoughts before we wrap this up? Well, it's been great having all of you guys here. I'm so glad you guys gave the time, and good luck on all your journey in the UPSC. And hope to hear you, and talk to you a lot more in the future. Thank you so much, guys, for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for the time, Adit.
Thank you, Saloni, as well. Of course, I thanked you on the message. I obviously can't do right now on the live stream. But guys, please like, share, subscribe. Follow their work, encourage them, and I hope we see a lot of people in the comments writing to us how their journey inspired them and how they are going to, with renewed vigor, go for the UPSC exam again. Gives me great hope in India. So when I see such fascinating ideas emanating, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.